Well, last week we saw that it is necessary to get God back into the world, and that's done through our conversation. The world does belong to him after all. This is what Psalm 24 says. The earth is the Lord and everything in it. Some wag has added this little phrase, the earth is the Lord and everything in it, and he wants it back. And the way that he's going to get it back is as the gospel goes out. So I hope that over the last week you've been practicing some of the God talk that we've been speaking about, so that so that people realise that God exists and acts and is real. But you may also have found that as you've done that, people push back and come back at you because they don't like what they're hearing. Now, the first of this series started with this text here from 1 Peter. In your hearts, set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have. Now, in looking at that text, we've seen that our hearts are more important than our mouths. Do not fear. Set the Lord apart in your heart. But nonetheless, our hearts not only need to be right, but also our mouths need to be prepared to be speaking a word for the Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer. Now, we've seen also that the first preparation for this speaking is by praying for our friends and indeed our enemies at work or wherever else. But there's also a place for knowing what to say. And how can we do that? Our first tip on this would be, do what Jesus did and make your answer a question. I think it must have been infuriating to be around Jesus at times, because every time you asked him a question, he would come back with another to you. Look at this. In Luke chapter 20, they come up to him and say, his enemies come up and say, by what authority are you doing these things? Who gave you this authority? He replied, I will also ask you a question. And that's the key part. I will also ask you a question. And if we ask questions, we find ways of learning more about the other person and how we can take a conversation. I think our questions often need to be simpler than the questions that Jesus asked. Here's a few. If someone pushes back against some of your God talk, then say, what makes you say that? Ask them what lies behind what they've just said. If they question our beliefs, they can say, what do you believe? And find out what their mind is thinking, where their heart is. And then perhaps if someone is obviously feeling strongly about something, you can say, can you tell me why you feel so deeply about that? There's obviously something perhaps lying below the surface. So why do you feel so deeply about that? There we are. Some ways in which we can be prepared to give an answer to those who question us.